Welcome to Dallas. Gosh, I've been here since Thursday. I feel like I've been here for a month already. This session is all about what's on the horizon in correctional and reentry education, and it's getting in the game. So before I kind of talk, my name's Jeff Abramowitz. I'll be your quarterback for the day. We're gonna be playing some sports and learning a lot. I do have a few kind of housewarming things that I wanted to share so that we could all be on the same page. If I can just figure out where this is. Move you out of the way. All right. Few housewarming things for today. First, I'd ask that words matter. So when we talk about individuals that are incarcerated, there's certain words that are triggering for people, men and women that are behind bars. We want to be respectful of that. So things like ex-con, ex-felon, ex-wife, like things like that, you want to kind of stay away from, okay? People that are justice impacted, good deal. Second is I run a very interactive workshop. So you're welcome to ask questions at any time, but I encourage your participation. And so please, I do have a rule about questions. My rule about questions is that if you have one, you need to raise your hand. Because I can't stand when you go to a conference and you have this great question, you get to the end and they told you, oh, we'll get to you, and you get to the end and you've lost the question forever. It's gone, and it probably was a really great question. So if you have a question when I'm talking, please just raise your hand, and if I give you one of these, I just want to finish my thought, and then we'll go back. And I do wander, so I hope I don't make anybody dizzy, but I do like to try to engage. If you have a question, I'm going to get the microphone to you so our folks virtually can hear as well. And then just some mutual respect in the room for everybody that's here. So we're going to start today by thinking of three words. So I want you to think of three words that would identify or kind of describe the work that you do in the correctional education setting or just in general education. I'll give you an example and then we'll kind of see what you have. Nike has three words. They're amazing, right? Just do it. Just do it. Three words. But when it comes to correctional and reentry education, the work that you do as educators, what are your three words? Anybody have any words? Three words that identify the work that you do. Come on, somebody's jumping. Go ahead. Free your mind. That's great. Every person matters. Ooh, I love that. Anybody else? One more. Low growth. Very good. They're really good. So my three words are hit the cutoff. So does anybody play baseball here? Anybody know sports at all? So the cutoff person is the person, either shortstop or second baseman, that he gets the ball when the ball flies all the way to the outfield and they're trying to get the runner out at home plate. He's the one that gets the ball so they can do it efficiently, right? It's all about teamwork. It's all about people working together. And those are kind of my three words. I want to also, hit the cutoff has a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people in different settings, but the one that I often think about when we talk about correctional reentry is it takes a village, right? It takes a village, because the work that we do is not just about the individuals that we serve behind the walls or in the classroom, but it's also about them as they come home, helping to find the next pathway and where they're gonna land. The other three words that I always think about when I talk about correctional reentry education is really and then some. You're gonna say, where did that come from? It's actually Bob Dole. Bob Dole. And he said the difference between good and great are three words, and then some. Because good people do what they're supposed to do. Great people do what they're supposed to do, and then some, right? And I'm always mindful of that. And as we talk through today, you're gonna learn a little bit more. I also want to give you one more rule that you're really going to appreciate, is that at the end of the presentation on my slide deck, there are 14 slides of material. I'm talking pages of links to all the articles I'm going to be referring to, all the topics we're going to be talking about. Everything that I say, it's proofread in those, including stuff on AI, because we're talking some AI today as well. So don't worry about missing a link or anything. It's all going to be given to you, and all you need to do is just hit me up with a card, and I freely give my PowerPoint out, because I'm going to cover a lot of material in a really short period of time. Fair deal? Everybody on? Cool. All right, so let's talk about today. Today we're going to be talking about the statistics. We're going to be playing the game of correctional reentry education. I bet you never knew there was such a game, but there is. It's a new sport, and it's going to be on ESPN shortly. But we're going to be talking about statistics and understanding statistics of correctional reentry education. We're going to be talking about where we are today and understanding that this game is constantly being played and who the winners are, who the losers are, and if there are any. And then looking at the players themselves, the You Got This, the innovation behind correctional reentry education, and then the Nike saying of just do it and where that is. In order for you to have any context of this discussion today, I think you need to know a little bit about me so that I can kind of guide you through and understand the glasses that I wear today are very different than glasses that I wore for most of my adult life. So I was born in Philadelphia, which really is kind of weird because I'm here in Dallas and our Philadelphia Eagles just won the Super Bowl this year, and I did everything possible not to wear my Eagles jersey just through the airport. So I grew up in Philadelphia. I always wanted to be a lawyer and went back and practiced law, went to the Ohio State University and then Michigan for law school, came back to Philadelphia and practiced law as a trial lawyer for 20 years in PA, New Jersey, and before the U.S. Supreme Court. And around 15 years plus, about 15 years ago, I made some bad choices in life. And those choices handed me a federal indictment. So I say choices. I'm really careful in that words because words matter to me. And I say choices because I don't believe that we make mistakes. I don't believe we make mistakes. I think we all make choices, and those choices don't turn out so well, so we go back and we do them again, right? There are lessons that we get from those choices. And I think it's really important to understand that it's one of ownership, of self-responsibility, but I made some choices that were not smart. I knew when I made them that I had violated the law, and it's interesting because in my journey, one of the things that happened was I look back to those moments and say anything that flowed from that second in my life up until today, I needed to own. So I was in no position to question when I took a plea deal. I was what the sentencing was. I wasn't going to question how harsh the system was. I was going to try to learn from it. So on March 12th of 2012, I was in a courtroom in Philadelphia, and for the first time in my life, I stood there as, not as a lawyer, but as a defendant. I was sentenced to 5 years in a federal prison, and I was taken to a place called USP Canaan, which for those who are in the correction setting, it's just below a supermax. And you might be wondering, why is a white Jewish lawyer going to a supermax prison? I wondered the same. But they had tragically just killed 2 guards inside before I got there, and the entire facility was on lockdown. So it was kind of really essential that they get some people inside that could help function the facility, feeding meals, teaching classes, doing whatever they could, because this entire facility was on a lockdown. So I served my time away and taught over 60 classes, everything from ESL to I taught a CDL class. And the irony of that was I had never been in the tractor trailer of a truck before in my life, was never in. And I wasn't, but Santos and Garcia, 2 friends of mine, were truck drivers. And they knew how to drive a truck in unbelievable ways. But the guys that I was with, they knew how to drive a truck. They couldn't pass the test because they didn't read well enough. They didn't know math well enough. They couldn't do those things. So I ended up teaching a lot of things. I did some crazy things when I was inside. I learned how to operate a forklift. I learned how to work in a commercial kitchen. I learned from everybody around me. But I read over 1,000 books while I was away, and I wrote a ton. And that was the way. And then I did a lot of self-reflection on understanding why it happened so it never happened again. But 2, also understanding what was the bigger picture. So I came back to Philadelphia, it'll be 10 years September, and was homeless. I lived in a homeless shelter. I was married with a daughter, and my wife divorced me while I was away, and that was kind of a blessing as well because she needed to move on with my daughter. My daughter and I are extremely close. And came back to Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia, and lived in a homeless shelter. And my first job was teaching GED math in North Philadelphia for $7 an hour. And from there, I became a director of workforce development for what's now the largest Title II agency in Philadelphia. And then things began to roll. I started doing more programming, getting involved in reentry, working with people coming home. I took a position with an organization called JEVS Human Services. So how many of you have a Career One Stop American Job Center? So in Philadelphia, that's who oversees the American Job Center. We call them Career Links there. And from that job, I was able to continue to build my network and the work that I was doing nationally. The day I got the job at JEVS Human Services, I received a call from Sharon Bonney from COABE. And Sharon said, Jeff, would you start the Prison Literacy Committee for us? And that's how that started. And I've been with COABE the last number of years. I was SAFE chair and started the SAFE program, and then secretary of the board of directors, and now public policy chair. In the interim, all this, I took a position with the U.S. Department of Education as a subject matter expert. And that came to a crashing end last week because the projects that I was working on, including Links, which is the national platform, and I oversaw Correctional Reentry platform, went away. So it's forever gone, including the IET and Corrections project. So it's been a remarkable kind of journey for me. I do a lot of crazy things. I have 2 national podcasts. I'm most proud of the work I do currently with an organization called the PD Green program. PD Green was a disc jockey in Washington, D.C., and he was very, when he was incarcerated, came home, and he was the voice of Washington. It was kind of, he was amazing. And the founders of the PD Green program, who are at Princeton University, the class of '58, were enamored with him, and they named the program after him. And it's been remarkable. I'll share more about that later on. So you can see that the glasses I wear are really, wow, administrator, educator, student, executive, all those glasses kind of put together in one view. And that's kind of going to lead me to a lot of stories today about the work we do. I will share this. There are 3 words we're talking about that are the hardest for anybody to say when you're incarcerated. And for many people not incarcerated, many of our learners, and that's I don't know. Those 3 words, I don't know. In the prison setting, it's particularly harsh because a lot of men feel that you know, they never had a chance. And by the way, I don't like the term second chances. Everyone says, you work in second chances. No, I don't. Because some of the people I work with, most of the people I work with they're on their 3rd, 4th, 5th chance, and they need more than 2. So just understanding that. But it's often really hard for people to say, I don't know math. I read on a 2nd grade level. These are things that often people just don't verbalize inside a prison because it's a sign of weakness often in a prison culture. So understanding that, it's really hard. But it is also part of the reality that those 3 words also look to create, we've been creating this ecosystem of education in our prisons and jails. And I want to show you now by data. So I'm really big on data guy. I ask my staff. I think a person without data is just another person with an opinion, right? Like, show it to me. Show me what you did. Show me how you did it, and then I'll kind of understand it. This is really important. Don't try and capture all this because trust me, you're going to get the slides on this, but there's a lot of material I want to share with you. So here's the reality. In our country, we have 71.5 million low-skilled in numeracy, 51 low-skilled in literacy, 43 lack basic workforce skills, 30 million lack a high school diploma, and 28 million lack digital literacy skills. This is just the adult population in our country. It's pretty staggering when you think about it. And you put that in the context of doing away with your United States Department of Education doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but for some people it does. And you know, we're going to talk through some of that. I also should say that I went away to prison and I lost my filter. So I just call shit the way I see it. I'm just telling you. So if you are a low literacy learner, you're 2 times more likely to be unemployed, 3 times more likely to be in poverty, 4 times poor health, 8 times more likely to be incarcerated if you're a low literacy learner. 8 times more likely. Wow. So that's not all. This is I carry this with me. This is kind of like my Bible every year because people often say, Mr. A, you're full of crap. You know, where do you get those numbers from? So here's where I get the numbers from. The Prison Policy Initiative, you all have a copy of it, just came out a week ago. It's called The Whole Pie 2025. And this is the package that has all the data in the United States on our content in prisons and jails in our country. Okay, it comes out every year. It's like the first thing it usually comes out first week of March. I got my copy of it, or I blasted it out right away. Like I want people to see the actual data points. But here's the data that we have in our country, and it's pretty staggering. But we have about 2 million people incarcerated, about 1.8 in the state prisons, about 562 in our local jails, and 200,000 in our federal prisons. So that's kind of the population of where we are, which is the most incarcerated country in the world. The most. There's no one even close to us. No one even close. And the tragedy of all this is one number that really sets the tone for what we see in the data, and that is this number right here, 448,000. We have 448,000 people in our jails, and they've not been convicted of a crime. So why are they there? Anybody? They can't afford bail. We live in a cash bail system. We live in a cash bail system. If you can't pay the piper, you're not getting out. You're staying behind until your trial comes on. So many of those individuals stay behind the walls until they can get released. It's pretty tragic. There are between 80 and 100 million people. I just saw statistics the other day. It was 82 million people have a criminal record in our country, and about 600,000 of those individuals come home every year. They're coming back into our communities, they're coming back to our neighborhoods, they're integrating into society, and many of those have really severe challenges. They have food insecurity, they have housing insecurity, they often are challenged with transportation, identification, those kinds of issues, and they are way more likely to die from overdose than any other population in our country, because when we put people into our prisons and jails, somebody believes that they don't warrant any treatment. And there is very little treatment that's done. And I'm gonna get to you in a sec. My mom used to say when I used to call home, so that's a whole nother situation, but I called home, it was $13 a minute for me to call home. And I'm in state. It was inside the same state, $13 a minute. And I wasn't making a lot of money in prison, trust me, but it's kind of ridiculous. My mom used to say, every time I called her, are you getting help? And I'm like, I'm not sure like what you mean by help. Like, I don't have like a team that's supporting me inside, and I don't, and she kept asking, but I kept thinking about those people that have addiction issues. And I can't tell you how many people I sat with in a shower in the facility that I was in because they were coming off whatever they were doing and there was no treatment at all. It is really challenging. Yeah. No, they're both felonies and misdemeanors. Yeah, yeah. So it's a large population, but there's very little treatment. And honestly, when we closed down our our mental health facilities, all we did was we incarcerated everybody. That's where it went. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, there is, and there's more programming coming around on things like that. That's starting to really, it's starting to help people. But the general rule is if you're in a prison or jail, does everybody know the difference between prison and jail? Just so you know, prison usually longer term, jail upwards of a year or less in that kind of venue. So we are. It's actually worse. So I have a slide somewhere, but I'm going to talk about it. But so we've been, since COVID, our prison population has been reducing. We've been reducing our prison population, and I was really kind of excited about it. The fact that we were letting people out during COVID, and there are other challenges there, but let's just say that we're reducing our populations. This is the first time in a number of years that we saw an increase in our juvenile justice population. The first time, and our young people are struggling right now, and we just are not getting it. We have to figure out how to support them better, how to get them integrated, how to give them a pathway to success and not go through the revolving doors of our prisons and jails. And that's really tragic. And the truth is that, we spend about $60 billion on our criminal legal systems, our incarceral systems in our country. You want to talk about, a business. Prison and jail is big business. There's a lot of money behind it. And with 600,000 people coming home every year, the reality is about 2/3 will find themselves back into prison within 3 to 5 years. So look at it this way. We spend $60 billion and we fail 2/3 of the time, right? I can't think of anywhere else that really happens. But we should recognize that most people that are in the carceral setting are coming home. Around 94 to 96% of all cases that are adjudicated, those individuals are at some point coming home. So if we do absolutely nothing behind the walls, what do we think is going to happen when they come home? They're going to struggle. They're going to struggle. They're going to go back often to the same place where they were before. I describe it like this: outside of every prison and jail in the country is this really fast-flowing water, and the people over here, you guys are all incarcerated. Sorry, and over here, you guys are all the stakeholders and the communities and everybody else that's supporting them. And our job is to get you guys over this water, so that you get support when you come back into the community. And that's really hard to do. And oftentimes people get stuck in the water and they flow back oftentimes to the prisons where they were incarcerated, jails where they were incarcerated beforehand. When it comes to basics, though, most people should understand that students want to participate in programs inside. They want to be smarter. And they want to do things like use a computer and get digital literacy skills. We'll spend some time on that today, but really understanding it. And the irony also is that many of them just they don't have a high school diploma. And they need that support inside, or they come home and they're already behind in a number of different ways. Today, statistically, about 70 to 75% of all the prison populations do not have a high school diploma or GED. They're working to it. We're getting better at providing that service inside. Statistically, though, you're 43% better off not going back if you take one class inside. So it's nothing. It's not rocket science when we talk about this. Yeah.
I'm just curious of statistics.
Yeah.
Is that gender? Are you including everyone, women and men?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So those are also they're in the material, and there's some data in there as well. In particular, the 43% came from a RAND study, and ironically, that RAND study is so old. There just hasn't been a lot of data currently. We're working on a return on investment study to kind of look at some of those issues. In particular, if we invest money in our prisons and jails, what will it look to on the outside? What does it equate to? So those are projects that are high on our radar screen. I think when we talk about education inside, we should talk about the why people do it. We heard one great story today. This lady right here was one of our students in Pennsylvania, Student of the Year last year, and she got an award and was recognized by our PACE, our state adult education. But she went up to get the award, and her granddaughter was with her. And the granddaughter was just beaming eye to eye and so proud of grandma. But there is a great study that's recognized that the greatest determinant of a child's educational attainment in their lifetime is the education of their parent and their mother. And we should recognize how important adult education is. So when you're advocating and you're talking to people that are, policymakers or working in the space, you should let them know that, that's our center. We should be thinking about the parents and not just the children that are in K-12 and that kind of thing. So why is it important? Just ask, I'm giving you it's an open book test, okay? Why is adult education in prisons and jails so important? What makes it so important? Anybody? There's obvious. I'll repeat them online for you guys. Yeah. Why? Yeah, they will be. They will be your neighbors. One day they'll be our neighbors. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the future of education, for sure. There's so many reasons that are commonsensical about why education is important. But number one is, let's fix the darn system. Let's reduce recidivism in our country so that we don't have this revolving door that keeps going around and round and round. We should be preparing people for employment opportunities. And I don't use the word jobs. I don't believe jobs is a good word to use. I was at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce last week in Washington, D.C., and at the Talent Forward conference, and there people were referring to jobs. We need to get people jobs. Baloney, we don't need people jobs. Take it out of your vocabulary when you talk about justice and people. Let's talk about careers. Because if I just put John in a job and John works at a fast food restaurant, he most likely is going to come back to me in a month, 2 months, 3 months, and say, Mr. A, I can't fry another fry, I can't flip another burger. That's not what I want to do. So the questions that we should be asking our students is, what do you really love to do? How can we help you get there? Mental health and self-esteem, it's huge. If you've never seen men and women coming home, and I know I have some people working on it, but a certificate can do the most amazing thing to people that are in the carceral setting. The most amazing thing. There was one condition, I taught over 60 classes when I was away, and the one condition was I needed a teaching certificate for every single thing that I did. And it wasn't an ego thing. It was that I didn't think I'd be able to get one when I left, or they would document it for me. But certificates are a big deal inside, and they really give people that self-esteem that I can do this, that I can do that attitude that we want in every one of our learners. We're also a way of breaking the cycle of poverty, making our community safer by living there, and then the social benefits of just reducing the money spent on things. But there are a lot of challenges. Challenges that we think about and challenges that we don't think about. So what are the obvious ones? What's that? Funding. Yeah, funding, programs. How about space inside prisons and jails? Yeah, that's what I don't have any room. Where am I going to put them? I don't know what to do. Space. Outdated facilities. How about Wi-Fi? Yeah, come on. Yeah, technology, Wi-Fi. Those walls were built so people can't get in or out, right? And you're not letting those wires go through. Big deal, yeah. Culture. It's a culture change. And for a lot of reasons, that some that you may recognize and some that you don't. But one is that, there's a dynamic inside of a prison between a correctional officer and an inmate. Okay, now I'm using the word inmate there because I think we need some emphasis on that, because there's a dichotomy that happens inside of prison and jails that they're their gatekeepers and they're making sure everybody's safe inside. And oftentimes, look, I provided technical assistance to West Virginia on the IET and Corrections project. And I went in to see them and I said, how's it going? And they said, well, they're not coming to class. And, well, what do you mean they're not coming to class? And they said the guards aren't bringing them over to class. And I was like, why not? And they're like, well, they don't think it's important. So they're letting them sit in their cells all day and watch TV and whatever they do. So, I mean, there is a culture that has to change, and that culture has to be, we want to keep you out. We want to help you. And that's from the wardens and superintendents all the way down to correctional officers when that happens. Yes, do you have a question? Oh, in back, okay. So it's really understanding what the challenges are in correctional education. Access to education generally inside is very limited. There are GED tests, there are some basic tests, but all of your students are really diverse. You could have John over here at a 3rd grade level, Tom over here at an 8th grade level, some over there at a 6th grade level, and they're all in the same classroom, all at the same time. You try and juggle those balls. That's really, really hard to do. So working with a diverse classroom is hard. And then also trauma. Education was a trauma for a lot of people. All their lives they were told often that you're stupid. Oh, you can't do this. You're not right for school. Go get a job, and now you're trying to beat down years and years of being told this, that I just can't do it. It's not right for me. I can't read. I don't want to go to school. Funding and staffing, big things that we're going to talk about a little bit today, and then outside support and culture with their family and that connection with families. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still, we are at the mercy of their timeline. And we have to pay $130 for each accommodation assessment that they do.
It really is hard. I remember, you're absolutely right. It's about accommodations and being able to accommodate students. I remember when it was my first few months I was in, and the guys would come to me for math support, and I was teaching them math inside, and they were telling me that they're going to take the test, their GED test, the math section, and I'm like rooting them on, and they all came back, and they're all shaking their heads, all upset, that it wasn't what they thought. But in the prison that I was at, they actually were shackled to a desk, and they could not leave the room. If they left the room, they'd fail. They couldn't complete, even if they had to go to the bathroom. And that meant they were staying in that room from 10 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not having lunch, food, or a place to go to the bathroom. And it was such a disgrace. But those are some of the conditions that actually happen inside our prisons and jails. So, yeah.
There's a question online.
Good.
During chat.
Yeah, good.
Is the 43% less likely to go back if they take a class? Is that any class?
Yes,
or is
it was
GED?
any class. No, it was any class inside. So there are some buckets when we talk about adult education and career and technical training. So first is the basics of math and reading and being able to be able to do those basic things. I do think that a lot of people that are incarcerated don't want the career and technical piece. They want to go and they want to get a certification. And I don't believe in just one certification. I think if you're gonna, I don't work with organizations that don't have a stackable credential because I don't have the and then what? They get through the program and then what? Well, they go and work and they end that entry level job and there's no and then what. So I like stackable credentials and also digital literacy, which is a whole different thing. So why is it we don't mandate digital literacy in our prisons and jails? It doesn't make any good sense to me because the first thing we tell people to do when they leave prison or jail is what? Go get a job. Go get a job. Go sit down at that computer and download your resume and use the mouse and cut and paste and do all those things. And you know what? People that have been down for 10, 15, 20 years, some of them have never worked on a computer alone. And yet we're asking them to go and file for, to file for a job and do all that. It's really, really challenging. And we have to start embedding digital literacy inside our prisons, jails, and make it the norm and not the exception. And there are some states that are doing it great. Is Maine here? Anybody from Maine here? Maine, doing amazing stuff. Maine actually has an open internet portal where you can get on the internet for their people. And that's pretty ridiculous. But more and more places are starting to look at how do we bring technology in, what does it look like as we go forward. So there are a lot of these barriers inside we're kind of chipping away at, but I think we need to understand what's the game about, like how do we play the game? And there are some really cool things that are happening. We're gonna go through some of them now. So some of the things that do work inside the correctional education setting and reentry setting are blended learning. Blending learning models where you're teaching them a subject and then they're doing some on their own and they're doing some live one-on-one with somebody. So I told you about the PD Green program, and our program is one-on-one tutoring, because it takes out that embarrassment factor. They're talking to people one-on-one to try and understand how they can get them smarter. Blended learning programs are so good. I'm walking around to vendors downstairs and I've been asking them, wouldn't it be awesome if your product, whatever it is, had a component of it that allowed them to meet one-on-one with a tutor at a convenient time for them that allowed them to succeed in your program? And it's kind of simple to me. Just give them a link and we'll connect them to a tutor so they can meet one-on-one. They're out there, those resources out there. Blended learning really makes sense for a lot of people. I do think inside we're starting to get better materials inside, but money and funding is a big issue. And being able to get them the best products that are available and the right platforms. It's hard because they don't want to spend money on it. And again, I am not a big tablet guy. I know there's some tablet companies here, but I'm not a big tablet guy. I don't think that we should be, first of all, I can't think of anybody. I've worked with thousands of people since I've been home. And I can't think of one single person that came home and said, Mr. A, I'm spending my night on the tablet tonight. They're on a laptop, they're on a Chromebook, they're on a, they're on their phone even, but they're not using a tablet when they come home. And we should be really mindful of that. There are some lessons in all of this too that I always say, I'm gonna slide on it, that we should all be curious and not judgmental. It's a great line. I quote Ted Lasso, but it was really Walt Whitman. But we should be curious and not judgmental when we talk about these things, because there's lessons of how to do this right. For example, during COVID, we got 1,000 cell phones to give out to people walking out the door. All these people being released, we're giving them cell phones. Sounds great. A year of free service, even better, right? So we give them the cell phone and we check back with them in 3 months. Hey, how's it going? What's going on with your phone? 85% sold them. Sold them. So So I got it, okay, but I wanted to know the why. Like, why did they sell it? And did not see this coming. Because it wasn't because they needed the money. They sold it because they thought they were being tracked. The phones were being given to them as they left a facility. They were unwrapped and pre-programmed and already had material on them. So they thought that they were being tracked, they were being followed, that the government, this was their way of following them. And I just didn't see it. I didn't see it. So I think we need to be curious. We need to ask those questions so that we can find out what are the barriers that you have. How can we arrange them? I told a story yesterday to some people that there was a woman that I worked with when I was a Title II instructor, and then the director, and a teacher sent a woman to me and said, she's just not coming to class. And I'm like, all right. So I brought her in. I said, how's it going? She says, it's going great. I'm taking my math test next week. She's really super excited. And I'm like, cool, but no, like, how's life going? And she said, oh, it's okay. It took me a good 40 minutes for her to tell me why she wasn't coming to class. She was missing class for 1 week every month. And it was because she had her period. And I did not know about period poverty. I called my daughter. I said, Rachel, explain to me period poverty. What do we need to do? And it's tragic, but we don't ask those questions. And we need to be thinking and wearing the glasses of our students to understand the barriers that are in front of them. Contextualized learning tools are really essential. I think adult learners, especially in the carceral setting, if they can see it and touch it and feel it, that they're going to be a lot better off doing it. I've been working on the IET and Corrections project. So an IET is Integrated Education Training, and the project was through Octay. And it's a really simple concept, but just a beautiful model. It's where a math teacher teaches fractions in the same room as a carpentry teacher, and it's contextualized. And then there's some career preparedness thrown in on that, right? And it's just this great model that makes good sense for everybody, and yet it's just one of the least used models, starting to get a little bit of play now because of the design camps that are going on, but understanding it. Virtual reality is another big one. VR. The thing I love about VR is it's a plop down. You can go inside of a facility and you can use VR and you can really learn from it in a classroom of people. So you're all in my carpentry or whatever OSHA 30 class, and I'm walking on a beam virtually, and you're all watching me to see what I'm doing, and then you're seeing if I'm tied off right or if I pull the beam in place right. I did this actually in a prison not long ago and hit myself in the head and fell 60 stories to my death. It was ugly because they even show you the splatter and stuff. But no, just walking that line, but guys got it. And they're all yelling out, no, put your safety gear on, put this on. No, you're doing that wrong. You want to hook in this. Or like they're giving me all this stuff. I have no idea what they're talking about. But virtual reality tools, VR tools are great. They're tremendous learning tools that we should be using more and more. And then digital literacy support. We're going to talk about digital literacy in a minute too. We'll get there. So we talked about IETs. I'm a big IET fan. I want to take a dive into this for a second. This is the prison education programs that we have in our country. I was so glad a good friend of mine, Scott Stump, who used to be Assistant Secretary of the Department of Education, is here. And if you have a chance to talk to him, he's brilliant. You should get to meet him. Really wonderful guy. But he asked me, he said, Jeff, how's it going? And Scott was Assistant Secretary during the Trump administration when Second Chance Pell was put back in. So Pell was started, and then it was stopped, and then reinstated during the President Trump's last administration, and it opened up the door to 700,000 individuals for possible education. In our prison setting, so many people, over 70% actually want to take classes inside, but so few are even given the opportunity. But I was really honest with Scott last night when he asked me, how's it going? And I was glad he doesn't work for the government anymore, because my filter kind of went wild, just saying. So we have 700,000 now Pell eligible. And this is really important in adult education. I know this is some post-secondary, but you need to understand this. It was in effect in July 23. And I'll give you some sites on figuring out where the PEP programs are, the prison education programs. So a guesstimate, we've had 473,000 people that took some touch of the Pell during its implementation, right? What do you think the percentage of completion is in the carceral setting? Anybody? 40%. Oh, what? 4%. 4% completion. I don't know, would any of you still have a job if you were at 4% completion on your programs? But here's the problem, and what people didn't see, and probably still don't see, is that when you open the Pell door up, just because someone was Pell eligible and they had an opportunity and you gave them, they got their high school diploma, doesn't mean they're ready for college. Doesn't mean they're ready for college. Not only that, what happens when they leave? But the bigger issue, which really pissed me off, was that we're using their prerequisite the dollars on prerequisite classes, basic math, basic reading, just to survive in prison, not even flourish, just to survive. So what ended up happening was they ate up all their money on Pell dollars on those prerequisite classes. They get into college and they get home, they got nothing left. And Pell is a one and done. If you're in and out of that program, you don't get a second bite at the apple. That's it. I was really upset. So we started a program at PD Green 2 years ago. It's our only curriculum that we developed, and we don't even sell it. We just give it away, which is a college bridge program, which takes students that are in high school, get their high school diploma, and we help them. And we work with colleges across the country to get them certified so that they can pass those classes and get credit for it at the college level. And that's really seeing where the problem is. I'm very skeptical about Pell being around much longer. And don't even get me started on FAFSA, because I know I have a hard time as a lawyer navigating FAFSA, let alone my students navigating FAFSA. And then the other thing that really gets me, but they did have the Simplification Act, supposedly making a difference. But I was just thinking last week, before I got here, I had a day, an afternoon, which I had off, which never happens in my world. And I went to get my real ID. How many of you guys have real IDs? So it wasn't even the appointment. I'm willing to wait in line. I got a few hours I can hang out, no problem. I kept thinking the entire time in line is when you come home from prison or jail, how in the world are you going to get a real ID? How are you going to get a real ID? I was so upset. I got to the lady, I was like, you should see my real ID picture. It is ugly. It was this ugly face I had on. I'm like, but that's some of what we have to look at. So what are the things that are the policies and practices that could really help us do a better job as educators? And we're going to dive into them because I think there are some few that are kind of easier and some that are not so easy. One is allowing good time credits. Allowing good time credits for people that complete classes. If they, what's that? And get out early, yeah. I mean, I'm not talking half your sentence, but give some incentive to them to get out earlier. How about actually giving them pencils and pens so they don't have to buy them in commissary? There was a guy that I was with, his name was 50, and 50 had me type his papers for him. And I'm like, I'd gladly do it. So 50 would send me his papers, and he would hand me paper, because he'd buy his paper at commissary, and he little wheel of a typewriter. The typewriter wheels where you peck and hunt and those little wheels go around. And I would get upset because every time he gave me a wheel, there was a letter missing. Like they break off all the time. I'd have to go through and literally type these papers out 6, 7, 8 times because I'd make one error somewhere in the document. They don't have online computers or things like that. Guys are using typewriters, the old electric typewriters, to do their reports. And it's just crazy. So kind of providing better supplies, more material that can be really helpful. Tutoring is what we do. I think providing tutors inside. We just started a really cool program, so I'll explain the way we work. So we provide educational tutoring through college students. So we have college students all across the country that they work for us. We train them. They go through intensive training to learn how to be a tutor. Then we bring them inside those classes, both behind the walls and on the outside, to help people get smarter. It's just brilliant, right? I have thousands and thousands of people on my payroll that I don't have to pay, and they're getting credits. So those are kind of things that we should be thinking about. But tutoring is a great way of doing it. I do believe in getting people ready to get out. I call it get ready, get set, get out. Like why is it that everyone in the country that leaves a prison or jail doesn't get an ID? Do we not know who they are? Are we questioning their identity? If we are, we got a bigger problem than I think we have. So we should really just be giving somebody a state ID when they walk out the door. Because, gosh, you can't get a job without 2 things: Social Security card and a state ID, state license. So we should be giving it to everybody as they come home. I do think, too, that being being an advocate for your student and helping them understand their pathway for education when they get out. Every single student's in your GED class or in your adult class inside the walls, they should know when they walk out the door who their contact is at the adult education provider when they come home in their city where they're going back to. They should know that. They should actually have them pre-enrolled. We enroll our students in CareerLink or American Job Centers before they leave the house. And why not? When they come home, they know exactly where they need to look for a career opportunity. That's where they're going. So understanding how we prepare them for those opportunities. Are you guys familiar with Ban the Box at all? Ban the Box is where an employer can't ask someone, do you have a criminal record on a job application? And many states have it. And we can go into a long debate about it, but I'm not a huge fan of it because I think it has other consequences to it. But there's Ban the Box in education. When you apply to some colleges now or post-secondary technical schools, you can't, you're actually make it not allowed in or admitted simply because of your criminal background. Now, I thought this was the most crazy thing until I became an executive director of the largest workforce agency in Pennsylvania. And we owned Orleans Technical College in Northeast Philadelphia. You're familiar? And I went for a tour my first week of work. And I'm like, we have this amazing HVAC training program. I was like, this would be great for people that are coming home. We're going to train them. They're all going to be air conditioning technicians. And I went in to talk to the dean of the campus, and he says, sorry, we don't take anyone with a criminal record. I was like, what? What are you telling me? This is like a perfect job for somebody coming home. It's a skill. It's a trade they can make good money at. And he explained to me that a technical college that's certified, part of their metrics are how many people they place at work. In the HVAC world, if you are in the home, it's a home business. And most employers that work in this business, they require to have people with clean records because the insurance company tells them that's the way it is. So I never saw that. And I asked the question. I said, okay, well, why don't we just put them in commercial properties and have commercial? And that landed a little bit better because there are more employers that open the door up. We should be thinking about those things when we talk about education and the career. Streamlining supports to connect programs on the outside. We talked about that. Pre-release benefits and filings. Increased teacher pay. Why don't we think about paying teachers really what they warrant? More professional development as well, and opportunities to learn. So I will tell you, I'm very proud that I am really skeptical about second and third rounds of funding. So just saying. But the thing with digital equity is, quite honestly, that 92% of all jobs require some digital skills. Think about that. Wow. So we really need to be thinking about how we get people smarter. This is all part of the infrastructure bill that President Biden passed or signed into law. And this was building all our bridges and infrastructure, and that was also put on hold recently. Although the Digital Equity Act is through the Department of Commerce, and I believe they are going to keep that award. So we're hopeful. We're waiting to see what happens. But $2.4 billion was invested in digital equity, and we should help people get smarter with in the digital digital divide. Apprenticeships. It just makes sense. We're paid and apprenticeships. Okay. And I was in Kentucky 2 weeks ago in Louisville, and one of the advantages that we should start thinking about embracing are 44,000 documented barriers. Mr. Van Doom, I'm almost done. I'm everything with just life in general and getting them to persist. I always say assume nothing when you talk to your students. Assume they put up on there. That'd be great. So, oh, Peggy Kaiser is back there from the Correctional Educators Association. And you can pick their brain and ask them what's going on and how can we do this better? What does it look like? So, oh, you're good. You good? Yeah, just go ahead. No, we're going back. You didn't see that one? Oh, oh yeah. Okay, keep going. That's really about getting back to work, and the unemployment rate for people that are incarcerated is about 27%, and that's crazy. That's higher than the peak of the Great Depression. Not even close to where during COVID. Employment's a big deal. Getting back to work and finding a career opportunity is a real challenge. So thinking about how you work through it. Educator that it has also means asking your students. Asking your students those questions of, what do you need from me? How can I support you better? What does it look like? There are, I think part of takeaway today is process. Um, it's not easy. Barriers of people coming home off. And I was all excited. I went in to see our director and I said, I'm here for my check. And she said, no, we do everything direct deposit. And I was like, I had a financial crime. I didn't have a bank account when I came home. I had a hard time getting a bank account when I came home. So understanding that, you're going to run into those bumps and how you try to navigate them is super important in helping people. So we're stuck here again, but that's okay. No worries. So education, I want to talk to you a little bit about where we are. We got a little bit of time. I want to talk to you about what it looks like from the inside to the outside in the reentry setting and coming home. and how we should be working at different